Hot stove conversations about baseball, history, football, and current events that may leave you saying there's more to consider. Now, here's your host, Jack Moore.
Welcome to More to Consider. I have my good friends on again, my new friend and my old friend. Kirk Buckner's here from Not in the Hall of Fame, and my friend Gil Florentino, who is an entrepreneur, former professional baseball player who knows everybody in baseball, and guy that sells cigars, which we're going to discuss. So we're doing bottom of the third. That's Kirk's brainchild, and we've been getting together talking baseball. But this thing came out, and given the lane that Kirk is in, and this is how we met about a half a year ago, I find out about Kirk through my producer. We do a show. He's Canadian. He now lives in Seattle, but had an interest in the fact there wasn't like a United States Hall of Fame, which we're now all working together on because Kirk has been gracious and brought me in, and then I introduced him to Gil, and they did a show together, and now we're just all kind of mixing it up. But it's in the news, and it's a weird thing when it comes to Hall of Fames. I think this is about as egregious as what just happened as we've ever seen, I think. But there have been times writers didn't like players, especially in baseball, and would say, well, that guy, I didn't like one time he was mean to me or cross-eyed or whatever. He shouldn't be 100% Hall of Famer, even though everyone knew. And besides, I'll vote for this guy because I have a liking for him. And maybe, the other guy's going to get 98% anyway. This has always been these stories. And the example I often use is Ted Williams, that wasn't really liked by the press. But when he became eligible, if he's not 100%er, you got some crazy people on there. If you don't look at Ted Williams and go, that's a Hall of Famer, you're not watching baseball. You don't know anything about it. But here's the big one, and this is what we're going to jump into. I was somewhere, I think at a restaurant, and I see this scroll going up on Sports Center. Bill Belichick doesn't get in on first shot at the NFL Hall of Fame. And I'm like, I just sit like, damn, how the hell does a guy that wins 6 Super Bowls not get in? And then I started thinking, maybe he wasn't the most well-liked. Maybe there's some different things in that whole dynamic of Bill Belichick, but still, you won 6 Super Bowls. So there's got to be something going on. So before we get started, I want your takes. I do want to throw something out there because it did cross my mind. I'm not going to lie and say it didn't, because it sort of did. I was on Twitter, and I was sort of shocked by the hostility that was out there. I'm just going to be straight up. I mean, I'm saying now, right off the top, I'd say it's like the Bonds, the Clemens, we talked about, the PED guys in baseball. There's some people that just smell Hall of Fame, and whether they never get in because of certain Pete Rose for gambling, whatever. They're just people were Hall of Fame players and their circumstances. So somebody wrote on Twitter, I don't want to verbatim say it, but it's basically like, let me break this down. He ruined 3 teams. This is his argument. The Browns, the Pats, and the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. He was caught cheating twice. He has an NFL record of 65 and 82 in the NFL. I'd have to go back and research that, but I think that sounds right because I looked up his Cleveland. It was a lot of 5, and there were some 5 and 11s before he had a winning season, and then we know the rest of the story. He was a 2-time Super Bowl winner for the Giants as a defensive coordinator. So he's 65 and 82 without Brady, and he's 4 and 8 in college. That is not even an average coach. That's a bad coach. So I think a lot of people were outraged in the media, sports figures, guys in the Hall of Fame. They were like, come on, it's got to be Belichick. But I have heard some people making the comments that he's running into the Brady thing. And I think the Brady winning another Super Bowl with the Bucs, leaving town and going and winning another one, that argument, is it Belichick? Is it Brady? Is it system? Well, he went and won another one with somebody else, with the whole crew. So I think that hurt the Belichick legacy to some degree. But what they're throwing out there is Deflategate and Spygate. That's the big thing. Some of his defenders I've heard have come out and say, hell, we all tried to cheat. The filming some coach giving signals on the sideline so we could break it down in film study and figure out what the signals were, that's nothing new. He just got caught. The Deflategate, they pumped the balls back up and Brady throws 4 touchdowns the second half. So I mean, it wasn't like the ball slightly deflated, maybe so, whatever. And then there's been all kinds of like even physicists that have gotten into whether or not it's even possible that the balls would have deflated that much, and all the text messages or whatever went along, it tainted them both. Brady more so definitely the deflate gate, not so much the spy gate. But let me start with you on this tonight, Gil. First of all, your emotional reaction and any kind of poop you have from wherever your sources are, what you think is going on here.
First and foremost, hello to the viewing audience, and thank you again for having me on the show. My regards also to Kurt. Extremely humble too that you chose me to be one of the voters for the.
We love you, man. We love you.
Thank you. My initial reaction, I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked. Not shocked because of the things that I heard that what's going on that was coming. And it's kind of my gripe for the Baseball Hall of Fame, right? That I know it's been happening a lot more. The people basically supposed to be quiet, but there's people getting together and say, hey, don't vote for this guy. You owe me one. Hey, yeah, I owe you this one. Yeah, I'm going to vote for your guy, which is not supposed to happen. If you think, first, Belichick was never suspended for the Deflategate. We know that, right?
So let me get that. Let me. I'm going to look that up just to make sure. But I know Brady did, but didn't they get fined like hell and they lost draft choices?
They got fined and they lost a first round pick,
right?
Which it would have been the 20.
But he personally was not fined. He wasn't, right?
Not for that one, but for Spygate he was. But yes.
He was, right?
Yeah. So we could talk about these things, but he's the resume. We could talk about wins and losses. It's like the argument with some players that they say, you know what, he didn't have a winning record as a quarterback. Listen, the man won 6 world titles. He went to 9 Super Bowls as a coach. He won 2 as a defensive coordinator and probably put the best game plan out of anybody in the history of the game, that Super Bowl against the Buffalo Bills, right? So if it's not a Hall of Famer, if you say because of the record, because of the Deflategate, because of the cheating scandal.
Well, let me make a statement real quick.
My thing is about winning. Do you it's Brady, okay? Who had the guts to draft Tom Brady in the 6th round? Who did?
Well, I will say this about that. I know I saw Belichick years ago, and he made an interesting point. And it was maybe some Monday morning quarterback in our 2020 hindsight. They said, what is it about Brady? And he said, I saw him play in front of 102,000 people in Michigan, and he never wilted. They kept trying to take his job from him, and he kept coming back better. That's what I noticed about him. But he was kind of he's a flyer. Yeah, maybe he works out, maybe he doesn't. He's a 6th round pick. But you're right. Everybody else passed him at least 5 times, and some 6, and he didn't. I agree with that. I totally agree with that.
Then how about this? To those people that said about Brady too as well, right? You pick the guy. Drew Bledsoe gets hurt. Who decided to go with Tom Brady instead of Drew Bledsoe?
It was Belichick. Yeah, once they got in the playoffs, they stuck by him. Yeah.
So, we're going to act, it's just, and I hate to bring this because it's a different sport and totally different. How many managers are in the Hall of Fame that benefit from players using PED?
Yeah.
3 that we can say right now, for sure.
But so you cannot say, okay, Trent Dilfer was the quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens when they won the Super Bowl. You can win with just anybody. No. Right?
One thing I do think is that needs to be said, I'll just say it up front, and you guys are probably thinking it too. I don't think the people who did what they did, and I understand, Kirk, you may know this better, it's like 50 people and 40 have to vote, and 11 voted against him or didn't include him. Yeah.
More.
But the point I was going to make is, what I'm hearing from most people that are doing the analysis, it's not that he's not a Hall of Famer. It's not that he won't get in the next class. It was, we want to spank you publicly for being a naughty boy. That's all it really is. It's not that they don't think he's a Hall of Famer.
Well, that's what it is. And also to some of the people voting, and he competed against them and beat them.
Napoleon, Bill.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Craig. I want to hear your take on this.
I want to hear your take on that especially.
Okay. All right. Well, so for those not aware, who are listening, 2 years ago, the Pro Football Hall of Fame made a very stupid decision, and I want to make this very clear. This is not the selectors. I've gotten to know a couple of them, the people I've been blessed to sort of know, and a former selector who you've also got to interview with Mr. Upton Bell, and how we hold him in very high regard.
Absolutely.
The selectors were not consulted on the rule changes and how it used to be previously. The coaches committee, the contributor committee, and the seniors committee would put forth a candidate, and then they would go yay or nay. Now what they did this last year, and we saw only one of those candidates get elected in Sterling Sharp. So you have 5 people who are in the same group. So Coach Belichick, Robert Kraft, Roger Craig, Elsie Greenwood, and Ken Anderson. I think we can agree, or at least I'm of the belief, all 5 of those guys are Hall of Famers, and it's tragic that especially Roger Craig, who I am huge on, did not get in originally. The change that they made, yes, people have to vote 40 for 50, 40 out, it has to get 40 out of 50, but they can only vote for 3 people. So mathematics is going to tell you, I flunked calculus and algebra. Not going to class might have been why, but either way, it didn't work out well for me. But I don't have to be a mathematician to know that these numbers were going to hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to make it a lot harder. And sure enough, last year, because they changed the rule for the modern group too, they had the lowest class in years with only 4 inductees. So getting 11 people to say no to Belichick. Now, also, I should also mention that even if nobody gets 40, they're just going to go to the highest vote recipient, whomever that might be. So like with Sharp last year, we don't know if he got 40. The selectors don't know either. They're not told. So in that room, which is still a Zoom meeting, and it's a lot harder to convince people of this when you can't really see their reaction, when it's just all these little square.
Right.
Yeah. So it certainly hurts this for those who are very pro Belichick. But from what was reported through ESPN, it was leaked that Bill Polian basically said, now whether this is true or not, he denied it afterward, but then he also said something else too. But Bill Polian allegedly said that he should have to be punished basically for Spygate.
Mm-hmm.
Have to wait a year. Bill Polian is a very influential person in that room, and probably I think only one of a couple people who actually is a Pro Football Hall of Famer. He was inducted for his work as an executive. Most of these other people are writers, and I don't want to say that they're easily swayed, but some of them very well might be when you've got a Hall of Fame person sort of saying that. Tony Dungy's on that committee too. He didn't say anything. And I thought what was really, really interesting is when this leaked, and there was one person on X who made a tracker of this, and I apologize because I don't remember who exactly that was, because I would certainly want to give that gentleman proper credit. But at least 22 people who are voters, who aren't supposed to say what they voted for, came out and said, I voted for him, or implied that they did. So many of those selectors feel blindsided somewhat. As for Polian, he said that later that, oh no, I 100% voted for Belichick. And then hours later said, well, I'm 95% sure I did.
I don't really remember. I think that was the statement, wasn't it? Like you said, I just don't really remember. And people were like, yeah, you'll remember if you voted for the guy or not.
You know, I'm not about ageism, Jack, but maybe they need a cognitive test here. I don't know. This was...
The bottom line is, Kurt, it's egregious that we get one of the best coaches in the history of professional sports.
Mm-hmm.
And based on his accolades and his stats as far as winning the ring, you know, you can have a career and where you don't have over 500 records, but you wind up 3 or 4 seasons going to the Super Bowl and you winning. In his case, he coached at 9 as a head coach, been to 11, 2 as a defensive coordinator, 1, 2 as a defensive coordinator, and 6 as a head coach. That's 8. If that guy is not a first ballot Hall of Fame, I don't want to hear about anything else about anybody else being the first ballot Hall of Fame.
Well, here's what I wonder. So because of this new math, and they already saw how this worked. So again, I sort of mentioned how big a fan I am of Roger Craig and what he did and helped revolutionize the position. Multiple Super Bowls, former Offensive Player of the Year. I don't know how he slipped through. I'm also really big on Ken Anderson. I think L.C. Greenwood is actually criminally underrated. I wonder if possibly some of the voters might be thinking, you know what? These are three great players. Belichick is going to get in. He's going to get all those votes.
Right.
I want to throw some of my support to Craig. And I think it's going to be Roger. I could be wrong. And to your point earlier, Jack, that other people were saying, well, you know what? Brady won without him. Well, Kraft might now too.
Yeah. So I guess what I keep thinking of, especially since I've met you, Kirk, and you've made so much of this clear to me, because growing up, you kind of know something happens that leads to these inductions, and you're kind of aware of it. And you've done the deep dive. You're the most knowledgeable person I know on how all of them work. You're a great guy. You're smart. But what I'm saying is, when we get into discussion, you actually understand the mechanics. Now, it does make me think about something that I've said in like 172 other shows, but I want to mention it again. We really are always in a situation where there's not an exact science to human nature and the way people are. So, Gil, you kind of, I think, alluded to it as well. If you're out there kicking everybody's ass all the time, you're that guy, you're that coach. There's some animosity built up. If there's a tinge of, and you might have even tried to cheat, how legitimate those, I mean, apparently it was pretty legitimate. So I've heard, and when I talked to Upton and did the show, I believe there was a lot of animosity between Hallis and Lombardi. I've heard the stories. Lombardi was one of the most hated coaches in the league from the standpoint of he kept winning championships. So that's human nature, especially the male ego. You're like, yeah, Lombardi's so great. Screw him. I want to beat him. So, is he a Hall of Famer? Clearly. He's, I think, the best coach ever. He coached 9 seasons with the Packers, and he won championships in 5 of the 7 in that sweet spot in the end. He won 5 championships in 7 years. And he took a team. Clearly, they were aging out. He got out at the right time and then passed away with the Redskins. All right, that's him. I do think, while he's clearly a Hall of Famer, I'm just going to play the devil's advocate again. I have heard that criticism of Belichick a lot. He did not have an impressive first run as a head coach. It wasn't impressive. It wasn't hugely impressive at all. And then, well, I'm repeating myself, but there is that thing with him and Brady, and on the backside of the career, there was supposed to be the tension between Kraft and Belichick on whether or not Brady was out. He wanted to go with the newer guy. And I think that there was a little bit that chapped Brady with that. He goes back and wins other Super Bowls. And I'm really going to talk out of school right here.
I had a former teammate in that locker room. It wasn't really play out the way it is to make it seem. He wanted an exit plan, which they didn't have one. They focused so much on his last year or the last 2 years that he was going to be there, while Belichick said, hey, we need to start planning what our future is going to be without this guy. Because in reality, he wasn't going to play forever. Right?
It's true. And I was talking to a group of the kids today.
A lot of times, I know, because as an entrepreneur, this happened to me plenty of times when I was working in corporate America, and I had an owner who basically hired a portfolio manager, an expert, and they want to tell that portfolio manager how to do their job. If you hire a plumber, you can't tell the plumber how to do the job. And if you see the organizations that the owners, for lack of a better term, I'm going to mention the Dallas Cowboys. Jerry Jones is all of the decisions. He's being the leader. He wanted to be the leader, and he sacrificed winning over being the person in charge and gets the credit for winning. What hasn't happened since, I believe, 96, right?
Yeah, 95 season.
There's going to be
they won 92, 93, and 95, yeah.
Listen, Belichick's philosophy is always been the same. I want to get rid of a player
early instead of late.
A year early rather than a year too late.
All true. Well,
but that might not have worked with Brady, but he didn't necessarily wanted to replace it. He wanted to have a plan in place so when he was going to hang it up.
So all I'm saying in that is, I can see we're an owner, and I'll throw this out there. And I've gotten this from a person who played in the era. You guys probably know what I'm talking about. The Red Sox of decades were, many people felt like Tom Yawkey would love the players too much. He was that kind of fatherly owner. loved Jastrzemski. Many people said he ran Dick Williams out of there because they had a little spat. Dick Williams was hard on Yaz. Dick Williams is out of the door. What's he do? He goes to Oakland and wins World Series, and then he gets the Padres in the World Series. Everywhere he went, he succeeded as a manager, but there might have been a little squabble there with Yaz. Yaz was definitely the guy. But the point was the owner liked the player. So that's what I kind of remember hearing in reports, is that Kraft was all for keeping Brady because that's his boy. He's won him the rings, and he's kind of loving him like a son. And Belichick, I agree with you, is looking at it like, guy's 37, don't keep doing this, even though he did. But, it's like he's going to hit a road. We have to have a plan. We have to have a plan to go into the next guy because he's thinking long-term about maintaining the dynasty. And he does carry that, which I think is a positive. He is more likely to let a guy go a year early than 2 years late. I mean, that's just who he was. But that's one of those kind of dynamics between ownership. Now, the thing about Jerry Jones that I want to say on that, Jones played college football. He knows the game. Like, here it is. I'm a Redskin fan. We lost everything because of Daniel Snyder. And what was Snyder's problem? He was a jock sniffer. So he's in there wanting to kiss up to the players and run around and be with the guys. He divided the locker room with the haves and have-nots and all that. So that's an ownership level of you're disrupting the team. So when Schottenheimer came in, what did he do? Brought discipline. They went 8-8. He fired him. He goes to Spurrier. You know the rest of the story. You just go through a carousel of coaches because you've got an owner who doesn't understand the game, has no business running the team at that level. So we're always going to, where I'm going with this is we're always going to have those dynamics of ownership likes the player a little bit more than the coach, or the coach has a long-term plan. But I will say this. I want to know if you guys have seen this. There are a series of things on YouTube you can pull up. And I'm not being totally out of line here, I think, saying this. I don't think we'll be a target, or I'll be a target of something because I watched the video. But the guy had a theory. He shows game film from Super Bowl X, whichever one it was, prior to the one with the Phillies, with the Eagles, when Nick Foles was the quarterback. So you all remember the Super Bowl, and the Eagles famously win it. Have you seen the conspiracy theory this guy has where he's showing Belichick is checked out? And the story was he was like, okay, screw all of it. Watch the video. You can't unsee it. The guy was like, here's Super Bowl X. Brady's coming off the field, one of the other ones. He's coming off the field. Belichick's right there at the clipboard. Let's talk. Then they're showing this game. They've had a failed drive. Brady's leaving the field. Belichick turns and walks and goes to the other side of the sideline. Just walks down the sideline away from him. They're showing him in moments of, come on, Skip, we got to make some decisions here. He's checked out. And the argument was, he was like to the ownership, okay, if I'm the bad guy, screw it, win one without me. You see if you guys can figure it out on your own. That's what this guy's theory was. But when you watch the footage, it's hard to not see that he looks like he's indifferent. I mean, unless this guy AI'd 10 years ago and made this video and it's not real, but he did, in comparison to other Super Bowls, look like he was kind of like checked out. Now, was that also not the game that Butler got benched?
I don't know how you can tell looking at Belichick's face when he's checked out of anything.
But
it's the same.
Okay, it's a location thing. Like, he was literally, here comes Brady, frustrated from the last failed drive, kind of hitting the offense score, and he just turns and walks away. Whereas they showed him, now check him out in Super Bowl, fill in the blank, another one. Okay, Tom, what do we got to do here? He just walks away. They're like looking at him like, what are we going to do here next, kind of thing. And he's like, hey, you guys figure it out. Is the appearance he gives. That was the argument. And that was his big, I'll lose a Super Bowl to prove the point. You bastards.
Is that the Super Bowl that Tom Brady threw over 500 yards?
And lost?
Yes.
He threw for a lot of yards.
Yeah, he threw over 500 yards. Yards. And if you look at Brady's stats in the first Super Bowl, right? When Brown was at the branch, I think it was the MVP of Brown, right? So,
right.
I mean, you can go, we can try to justify this any way we can, but I think there's something to what Curtis said. Okay, if I only have a select of people to pick, and I can only vote on these people, We know that Belichick is going to get in eventually or next year. These guys are on the last year on the ballot, which is also hurts because now this also depends now on who's going to be in your same class. They might hurt you whether you're going to get voted in.
They don't know though. They don't know who's voted in. So like they're all doing their presentations, an 8-hour discussion. So the selectors at the end of that, they put in their votes, but they don't know. So
when they get their ballot, they don't get the people listening there who they're going to vote for.
No, they do, but I mean they don't know the end result. So
I get that, but when Sandy say, if I get a list of Jack Warren, and I get Kurt, and I get Gil Florentine, and I get 2 ex people in there, and I can only pick 3 out of the 5, right? Well, if I'm in the same class with this guy, it might hurt me because I'm only going to vote for 3 out of the 5 votes that I got. I can only pick 3 people, or whatever the amount is. I'm just saying that's also that's something to that, what you just said, right?
I think to your point, though, Belichick's going to be back for sure because he's clearly the best coach left out of those who are eligible. The one behind him, based on who they had last year, was Mike Holmgren. And with all due respect to Mike Holmgren, I think we can all agree Bill Belichick's got a better candidacy. Saying that, there's no guarantee that it's not a guarantee that Belichick's going to be back, but it's far more likely that Belichick will come back than Craig, Anderson, and Greenwood. I mean, I'm thrilled with the 3 that got to this point, but it's a completely different 3 than the 3 last year. And there's a good chance that if I'm part of that senior committee and I push and I've got player X, doesn't matter who it is. I should just say Roger Craig. And let's say Craig doesn't get in. If Craig doesn't get in and then I hear from that room people weren't into him, I'm not going to waste my time again pushing for him. And Belichick, I think, trumps everybody. I think nobody disagrees with that, but it's that slap on that wrist. It's like Polian apparently was huge. Well, what wasn't apparently, he said it, that he was big on Terrell Owens having to pay a penance.
Yeah. Well, that's another one. And that's a great pull to talk about that too, because that was the same thing. And I remember, you probably famously saw it when Shannon Sharp was doing the show with white guy, loves the Cowboys.
Skip.
Yeah, right. Skip Bayless. And they kind of got into it pretty strong. I mean, it was one of those shows, I don't know, what was it, 10 years ago or more?
Yeah, I remember. I recall when you were talking about it.
Yeah, and Bayless was very much to his face saying, you broke up locker rooms. You destroyed the Eagles. You going with Ed McNabb. And, T.O. gets, understandably, he goes, dude, I'm second all time in this. I'm second, he's throwing back the numbers. And he's trying to make a defense that he wasn't the cancer in the locker room that everybody wants to make out. But I'm watching the whole thing and I'm thinking, Skip, if that's really a criteria for the Hall of Fame, you're like the second most productive wide receiver in history for yards, reception. You can't get in because you're kind of an asshole to some guys or to everybody. Then what's the Hall of Fame? I mean, T.O. to me was a Hall of Famer. He just was.
Well,
I mean, I thought.
He's, it's crazy because I had a conversation with one of my employees today. So I was like, there's a lot of times, if you vote the guy to be the first team NFL All-Pro and the media is voting for you, and also when your candidacy comes up, we now want to vote for you because you were this jerk. Most of the times, and this happens also in corporate America, but most of this has happened while you producing for me those elite numbers, I'm going to put up with whatever it is that I need to put up. But the minute that you start producing those kind of numbers that you used to put in, now your baggage becomes a lot heavier.
Sure.
And then I might have something to say. And maybe the things that you did in locker rooms all of a sudden become an issue when they were not an issue before, based on your performance. I knew that something was going to be up with Bill Belichick when he came down to this, that he was going to be voted in as a first ballot or not, where there was going to be people that were going to haul against him, his arrogance, At times, how he treated people. Nobody's telling me this. I saw this with my own eyes.
Right, sure.
Right? How he treated people, how he dismissed people. If you want to do that, I mean, again, obviously you guys know that when I was in the locker room with the San Francisco Giants, I experienced this with Barry. Barry was a nice guy to me. I mean, he never did anything to me. He was always very polite. With some of the people that were around me, he was always very polite. When somebody from the media came, he turned me into a different person. When you talk about the issue with Ted Williams, at the end of the day, we need to start judging these people for what they did in the field of play. It's more a character. There's people that you never find out the issues, skeleton they have in the closet, and they turn out to be an awful human being. But what they did in the field of play at that time, I'm not going to ignore if somebody does something egregious. But also, it needs to be the field of play. What is it that we play the game for? We play the game to win. And again, if you play the game to win, and you have a guy that won 8 Super Bowls, 6 as a head coach, and 2 as a defensive coordinator, what are we talking about here? I remind you, there was somebody that did not vote for Derek Jeter for him to have an unanimous vote. Okay? That Babe Ruth didn't get unanimous. Okay?
Only Mariano Rivera, nobody else.
Yeah, no, well, but there was a particular time the being a closer used to be like, those guys can come in there. You save a game with you had 3 runs in the 9th inning, and you could get 2 outs and you can get a save, and you get 200 less in career out of you 500. Now you're the Hall of Famer, and somebody who had 762 home runs is not a Hall of Famer. Somebody who has 350 wins is not a Hall of Famer. Right?
Look, but again, and we've talked about this on bottom of the third, but look, we're all in agreement. We're all in agreement that what goes on with Clemens and what goes on with Bonds has to do with PED. There's an unfairness. Yeah, like you said, you can go down the road. There's benefit that the owners had. There's some of the teammates might have had. And there's guys that slipped through the cracks that were PED and they still got in. But we know what that is. And again, Belichick's going to get in. But, when we're talking about this kind of dynamic, you kind of wonder if June 12th, 1994, the night of a certain double homicide in Los Angeles or in Southern California, what if that happens within 5 years of OJ? Because what people forget, he became a punchline and a joke, but I lived in that time, and you watch the highlights. He's in the conversation. Jim Brown had 63 yards in 1963. 10 years later, OJ breaks 2,000, 1973. And that was just like unheard of. He did it in 14 games. Of course, Jim Brown did it in 12. But OJ was that. I'm telling you, OJ's in the conversation of the greatest running backs of all time. But look at how sadly his life went. And I'm not saying that it wasn't self-inflicted. But, the robbery charge at the end of his life, spending time in prison. But many people thought he got that as a result of, well, he got away with murder, so let's go ahead and tag some extra time. But he became a real public joke.
That definitely was a made-up call. I make that call. Like an umpire, if they make that call, like, hey, I missed it, I'll get you in the that one.
Yeah, but I use that example. That's the most extreme example of separated. Separated.
Well, here's a question with that. I know we're sort of like talking about Bill, but I've wondered this a lot. Let's say the eras are sort of like pushed more forward with OJ, right? And all of this happens. Again, we all remember it in real time. We all saw the Bronco chase.
Yes.
And whatnot, right? What if that happened during social media where everyone's got an opinion and everyone's going to like push all that, their own agenda? Because if you go into Buffalo, and I've been to, I guess the old Orchard Park, but it's going to be new. OJ's there, like in their Hall of Honor, or retired, whatever it is.
Ring of Honor, I guess.
Yeah. But they have felt obligated to remove it because Roberto Alomar, when he had a scandal, when he was a worker with the Baseball Hall of Fame, I don't know if they put him back up, but they had something like representing Alomar outside the Sky Dome or Rogers Center. That was taken down.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I think because of the era, it got to stay. And just one thing, it's weird to say.
Removing stuff. removing stuff is always hairy. Now, George Preston Marshall refused to integrate the Washington Redskins, my team, until Bobby Mitchell, because they drafted Ernie Davis. He said, I'm not going to play for you. That 49 I got up here somewhere. I got a 49 up here on the wall. That's for Bobby Mitchell. That was the patch after he died. I have Bobby Mitchell's autograph. So I'm some little white kid in Virginia. I'm in love. I love Bobby Mitchell and Charlie Taylor. I don't know anything at the kid. I'm a kid, but I'm like, two of my favorite players were black. Then as I get older, I realize the history. And guess what? I've heard Thomas Sowell, the black economist who kind of speaks on these kind of libertarian thoughts. They paid a cost. When they wouldn't integrate and everybody did, they got their asses kicked. So they had this 10 years of the 50s where they were terrible and they didn't really get good again until Lombardi got there. But the point I'm making is George Preston Marshall is the founder of the team. In large part, he's a part of the founding of the NFL. I mean, he's a part of that. They removed the statue from the cover, the front of RFK Stadium, and maybe they actually had one at the new FedEx too, or whatever they call it now, Northwest or Northeast or whatever the hell it is. But he became a unmentionable, as we go through these phases. And that's why I'm saying if there's an OJ that has an incident like that within 4 years of the end of his career, what do you say right in the middle of the Me Too movement or something like that? You've got, seriously, I don't know that his body of work survived that. He finishes playing, I think, in 79. The murders happened 15 years later. I think his last season was 79.
79, I think you're right,
Yeah, he played with the 49ers, and it was a debacle. It was kind of ugly. He finished his career with the 49ers. And again, there's an excellence part of being a running back. The window is relatively short. He had a great window, and like everybody else, he was 32, I guess, when he was done, something like that. But the thing is, that would be a great question. Let's say all the things are the same, and this allegation and murder trial and acquittal happens. All of the nastiness of what we saw with that ugly situation. What if all that happened before he was inducted? Just saying. Would that have been the kind of thing that would have kept him out or kept him off of?
Jim Tyrer, because he was finally was a finalist again last year, and he
took his own life.
He took his but he took his.
But he also took his right. That's right. That's right. It was a homicide and a suicide. Yeah.
So
I do remember it. Yes.
Yeah. So he was a finalist that year, and then he was never a finalist again.
Yeah.
And he
was a Hall of Fame player too.
My God.
Yeah, he was a Hall of Fame player.
I had the opportunity to actually talk to the gentleman. He put together a documentary on Jim Tyrer's life. It's not gone out yet, and he spoke with his kids and whatnot, and his kids did sort of absolve him, just saying, like, from what we know now with CT and all this, we forgive our dad.
That's what I was going to say. That's what I've always
I couldn't have, but still.
Yeah, I've heard the stories that the family said prior to the murder-suicide that they didn't even know who he was. Like, so there was always a question of head injuries with him, if I'm not mistaken, with Tyrer.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? Yeah, exactly, there was a lot that it was really, really sad. And I think all of this went down within 3 or 4 years of him finishing playing.
Yeah, no, because he was eligible for the Hall, so it would have been 6 years. So it would have been that time frame. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was shocking to me as sort of, I guess, a Hall observer or whatever you want to call me, that he was even made it to a finalist last year. And I did get to talk to a couple historians off the record and just that. And they, if you go just by on field, it's a no-brainer. But he's also an offensive lineman, which means, hey, what's that? You can sort of sweep that under the rug. The only popular offensive lineman right now is Jason Kelce.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and another thing with that situation with someone who has then lost their life, I think there's got to be a little bit of people are like, he didn't take his wife's life and then survive to a trial and get, a conviction with a life sentence. And he's alive and he's not going to be able to come to the induction. He's dead and he's not going to be able to come to the induction. So I think that there might be a certain amount of, he's not alive to not be able to accept this, that he can't get in. So, I hate to say all that in that context, but it's almost like sweep it under the rug, move it to the side. He's a controversial entry because of, so let's just turn our back. Had he lived and been convicted, say, for the murder of his wife and lived, I think he also doesn't get in. But then that would have been you're painting the OJ situation. Exactly. I mean, regardless of what one thinks about whether he did it, and people can differ on that for sure, and people do, the bottom line is he got tainted with, maybe he wasn't husband of the year, and maybe there was some violence in the home life and all the rest, but it doesn't remove the fact he's that guy on the field. So we go over this, and we're saying it with Belichick too, but there was never, I ever heard a question of, was the juice on the juice? Like, was OJ doing something PED wise? Well,
in football, they don't care, though. In football, they don't care.
Yeah.
They have touched on it at times, but there's never really been any penalty to it. But there's definitely been some addressing of it. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I
Hall
think
of Fame?
No. I'm talking about from the sport itself. And
Okay,
I used the juice wasn't juice to compare it to baseball. What I'm saying is he never deflated the balls to our knowledge. He didn't tilt the field in a certain direction.
Gotcha.
So OJ didn't do anything between the lines, I think, that was ever questioned by anybody. Belichick did.
Going back to Bill Belichick.
Yeah, let's go back to him.
And I don't know if you guys agree with me on this. All I heard while he was in New England was, this is a models franchise. This is the Patriots way. This is the model of consistency. This is class. This is the elegant. And now it's not, right? For the whole time that he was there, no, this is what we're just preparing for next week. We're just preparing for next week. We're not talking about what happened last week.
He had a style. Yeah, he had a style.
He had a style. We get it. But for however many years he was there, was it 17, 18 years, whatever that amount
23, I think. No, that's right. It was 23 total, but I think, no, he had 23 with them. That's right. Because he started off in 2000, I think, and he made it to 2022 or whatever. So, yeah, I think it was 23 years with the Patriots.
20 years, whatever, how long exact time that he was there. All I heard was the Patriots way, how excellent the guy was.
Mm-hmm.
He was the poster child for a great coach that prepared well, got the best out of his players. Everybody revered him. And now all of a sudden, when the guy was done, and this is opportunity, I know for a fact, because I did talk to people, that, and there's no way that we didn't know that there was 10 people that was not going to vote for him, because that was talked about. For whatever reason would have been, is if we didn't like the guy, or it was payback time, or we wanted, it's going to be a slap in the wrist, or whatever it is, and we want to make a point that we wanted to get back to you. That's exactly what happened here. It's never about the resume. Obviously, everybody knows that if it's anybody who's going to be a first ballot Hall of Fame, it's Bill Belichick. It's not going to happen with Tom Brady.
Well, that has come up now that the precedent been set that Brady has to suffer.
Now you do that. So now you're going to have to start. Now whoever votes for the Hall of Fame, for the NFL Hall of Fame, they're going to take that in consideration. Why? Because you had 10 people or one person in there that was very influential. They had a vendetta against that person. I mean, it just opens Pandora's box.
Kirk, what do you think?
I think when we're looking at that, actually, here's something I wanted to ask you guys. Mm-hmm. And again, somebody who is way on the outside as myself. And some of the voters, well, most of the voters should not be. But is it sort of a negative? This is just me sort of like throwing out, here's my way out conspiracy theory.
Right.
Yeah. So for those watching this, listening to this, take this, maybe chop it up and like throw it out. I don't know. But Bill Belichick, as we know, was the god of Sun Tzu and just sort of like winning the battle before everything happened.
Mm-hmm.
But the last 18 months, who the hell is this guy? With Jordan Hudson, the girlfriend that he has, embarrassing himself again and again.
Well, that has actually been That was actually brought up too, and I can't remember which one of it was a major commentator we all listened to and
But
see.
what does that have to do with what he did?
Well, that's what this guy was saying. There was a major commentator I was listening to. Said, does it really come down to the fact that he's a 73-year-old guy with a mid-20s girl, whatever? Well, who the hell wouldn't do that at 70? We all know if we're 73 years old and we're still, with some 24-year-old and she's willing.
No. I have a pact with my friends. If my United States Hall of Fame takes off and all this other stuff, they will not let me embarrass myself.
Well, you're happily married and all that. So, I mean, yeah, I get that. But I'm just saying there are a lot of men, there are a lot of men that if we're fair to ourselves, a lot of guys are looking at that and going, Bill,
Robert Kraft didn't think he was going to get caught. Robert Kraft just said, like, you know what? Okay, I don't have, he wasn't married. His wife had passed away tragically. I don't have a problem with an old guy just sort of like saying, I need to sort of like get off a bit. I mean, pardon me for being sort of like vulgar on your show here, Jack, but.
Well, that's what we live for, baby. It's good. It's all good. It's all good.
But so like, if that's what he's going to do, fine. I could give a shit.
But what was the situation on that? Was that dating some younger girl, or was it
Kraft? No, he just went to like a rub and tug, and then it turned out that rub and tug was illegal.
Oh, that's right. I do remember hearing that in the news. Right. Okay.
Well, that's a little bit. He does have a younger girlfriend.
Kraft
does.
How much younger?
Well, I mean, at the time when probably 30, 40 years younger.
Well, when you reach a certain age, everybody's younger.
I mean, this is when I was in the but.
His younger girlfriend, the power to be sort of like his PR manager and shit like that. No.
Okay. On that, people have all kinds of different personalities, quirks, and the rest.
It will bring a lot of players, though.
What's that?
It will bring a lot of players.
Well,
hey, let's not pretend that when people were recruiting you, they brought you places and had you.
Oh yeah.
I mean.
We're talking about a 73-year-old guy who was the master of control.
Kirk, let me get this out. This is exactly what I'm saying. It's like, I'm watching Dr. Phil one day or something, and he's got girls that work in some particular place, and they're like dominatrix and like, what's your clientele? It's usually judges and Wall Street lawyers or Wall Street types that they're under all this tremendous pressure. They want to meet up with somebody that's going to whip on the rear, some kind of strange, maybe it seems like some kind of exotic behavior, but it's because they have to be in control. So I would think Belichick is the perfect candidate to have some young girl tug him around and tell him what to do. Tug might not have been the right word for that, but to pull him around.
Probably?
Yes. Why does he give a shit? What does he care? Apparently he's committed to her and all right. He's not running around with other 23 or 24-year-olds. So if they've got some kind of committed, look, he's done his thing in the NFL, and he's done it pretty successfully. He's got the rings and the rest to show for it. If you're 73 and some girl 50 years younger than you is making you happy, what the hell do you think? I mean, why would you care? Now, I don't know his situation.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. But like when you're sort of like, you're the god of control. You're the god of...
But that's just it. He's controlling the football field. He's controlling the football field. I've seen these types. There are people that are absolute. Let me just throw a little thing out there real quick that I'll never forget. I was at a CLE, continuing legal education thing. I'll never forget this. 20 of us are sitting there, and they give us the Myers-Briggs test. 19 of us shouldn't have any, including me, shouldn't have anything to do with law. And the woman that gave the test was like, somewhere somebody made you feel like you needed to be structured. I'm the least structured person on earth. What I love is creativity. But Gil knows this because we've coached together. I'm like, baseball's an art to me. It's not some rigid, let's do some drills and make the drill. No, you play the game because the game plays itself out. It's a mystery every time. So I think the more artistic baseball player, I heard Tom Seaver say that one time, and it spoke to my heart. He goes, yeah, every time I went out there, I wanted to paint a masterpiece. I'm out there pitching. I'm trying to paint a masterpiece. We appreciate that as baseball guys. We look at that. So we're in that room, and one of the guys was like, you know what's crazy? I work with the guy. I represent him as an attorney. I shuffle the papers and make everything get signed. He goes, this guy will show up days that we do what we do with 2 different shoes on or 2 different color socks. Nothing's pressed. Everything is a mess. And he is without fail knocking out $50 million deals to build some hotel down on the waterfront or something. And I'm looking at this guy. He never sweats. He goes, he's an idiot savant. He can't start his car. He can't keep up with oil change. He can't keep it, but you can put him in a room, and his gift is that when all the pressure of doing high dollar deals is on, he's got it. And he's got numbers in his head playing. He goes, the guy cannot function daily. But God has put him in the position where he can handle big situations when it comes to high finance and this type of construction. He nails it. So you see people, and does that guy need a 23-year-old or 24-year-old to drag him around by? Maybe. He's making millions doing what he's doing. But to then project because the guy's really good at high-end construction or finance, he must be really, I don't know that Belichick's really structured any other part of his life. We know he's a football coach. But what did he grow up with? A dad as a football coach and a love of the game. He grew up with it. So he learned how to be structured in the football thing. But that doesn't mean he's not. I mean, I don't think it's going to be, therefore, he's also going to like look to the public and worry about what they think of whether or not he's with the girl a quarter of his age or third of his age. He didn't care.
I'm not saying that he should. I'm saying that
you're saying that he strikes you as somebody that's really structured, and yet he's out there with some young girl, maybe making a fool of himself to some degree.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay. I'll bluntly say it. He's making a fool out of himself,
and I don't think he cares. And I just don't think he cares.
For me personally,
what a way to do so.
for me personally, guys, I don't give a shit about the Hall of Fame, and that would not be a negative for me if I was a voter.
Right.
What I am saying is that it could be.
It's come up. It's definitely come up that people have questioned.
It's definitely come up. I mean, you're right. You're up to something.
I'll tell you something else has hurt him. I'll tell you something else has hurt him. Is going to Carolina and not winning. That is definitely, I swear to you, that's hurt him. If he'd gone in there and knocked on 12-0 and made it to the bowls and all that, the fact he went to Carolina, they didn't have such a great season, regardless of what came in. I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, what kid wouldn't want to play for Bill Belichick? That's the road to the NFL. And then it was 4-8 this year. That hurt him. I'm telling you, if you go to college and you don't coach as well, or you don't have a winning season, that's just more fodder for what that guy was saying. Like, yeah, he was never any good without Brady. You go put him in college, he has a losing record.
Bingo. Yeah. And that's exactly what I was sort of thinking. Because like he does all this, and let's also be blunt. He can't get to a bowl game in this era.
Yeah.
He can't get to the shit tarts bowl or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
Couldn't do that.
Well,
and
again, unfortunately, this whole situation with him not being the first ballot Hall of Fame opens for discussion for many things and find many conspiracy theories about why it shouldn't happen. And I think this is a stain on the process. We have to call it for what it is. If you wanted to prove a point to the guy, if you wanted to embarrass him, you already did so. He's a historian of the game. He loved the game. He's a guy that cares about those type of things, and you knew that personally, and that's the reason why you did it. And that bottom line, and that's, I think, the take for most people, that's exactly what happens, and that he got what he deserved for whatever the case might be. But we know that this is going to change some things now, because now you're going to know that inside that room there was people saying, hey, we're going to do this only this one time because it's the only time that we can get the guy.
I think you're right about all of that. I do wonder, as someone who was so dismissive of the press, and I'm not saying in a bad way, I think some of his responses like, yeah, it's on to the next place and that's in the past and we don't care, blah, blah, blah. I did hear a lot of the guys say, and I thought it was some of the best football television I've ever seen, was during that 100th anniversary season when Collinsworth was on. Was it Rich Eisen, I think, did some of the NFL Network? And there was a time when they had LT in there. Lawrence Taylor was in there, and Ray Lewis was in there. And that's when Taylor was like, hey, great, people say greatest defensive player about me. It was Reggie White. And I remember they were talking. And Belichick was in on all of those. And guys were bringing up the point, he is the greatest historian you'll ever hear talk about pro football. He really is. So he grows up, he's kind of a football nerd, he grows up as son of a coach and everything. And I saw that they did a great 5-part series. I can't remember who produced it on the AFL. And he's on there. Oh, yeah, I remember back in 61, there was this team and that team, and then so-and-so was a general manager. And he's just like spitting it out about the history. And growing up in Annapolis, I think his dad was coaching at Navy at the time. He goes, my dad would either turn the antenna to get the Baltimore game or the Redskin game, and then we started picking up AFL games when we could. Because it used to be the only game we got in the afternoon was the Giants. And, it's just his history. All right, he's 73, 74, whatever he is now. So he's 10 years out from me. So he's growing up in that late 50s era where he's seeing the AFL in 1960 become a thing. And I mean, he's just spitting facts. I mean, he knows pro football, and he knows talent. That's for sure. He knows talent. So there's a lot of positives about him. But does it ever change from like high school, most likely to succeed, best looking? We go back and look at our high school yearbook and like that clown got voted that or whatever, why somebody ends up running a bank and, there's some guy that's still out there, changing tires at some place, was the guy voted most likely to succeed. Well, maybe he was most popular or whatever. Belichick's not popular. He doesn't try to be popular, I don't think.
No, he doesn't want to be.
And historically, and like I said at the opening of the show, there's a lot more stories about people not particularly liking Lombardi. We see him now. He's not only on the Mount Rushmore. He's it. He's that figure. He's on the Super Bowl trophy. And there was talk of making Belichick on the trophy because he'd won 6. And I personally, go ahead.
No, I was
just going to say, me personally, it's got to stay Lombardi. Just going to say, it's got to be Lombardi. It's his trophy. It's Lombardi trophy. Go ahead.
I agree with you. I was just saying, like, you can't take him away because of the time that sort of like happened. So like he passed away, what, 71, 72?
September 3rd, 1970.
Okay. So at that point, they already sort of like lionized him.
The way he died coming out of those Super Bowl victories and the fact he died at 57 of cancer, I think you're right. If he'd made it to 80, maybe there's a little bit different take on him. But I think we would have won Super Bowls in Washington with him because...
No, sure. I'm just saying that, like, at that point, like, you can't... In that particular year, you can't say, like, he wasn't, like, the god at that point of football.
He was. Yeah, he was. Well, Madden's famous line was... When a person, I don't know that he said Hall of Famer, but I think he did. He was talking about when somebody's worthy of all of that adoration and the rest is, can you tell the history of the sport without him? That's a great line. And it's kind of hard to tell the history of pro football without Belichick. You can't do it. You certainly can't do it without Lombardi or Hallis or George Preston Marshall, who might have been this outdated racist type, but he's still part of that story. Hallis is part of that story. Burt Bell is clearly part of that story, which we've had, this wonderful opportunity to talk to Upton. And when I talked to Upton about George Preston Marshall, he goes, yeah, interesting cat, not a football guy, didn't really know the game, but he knew business and he knew marketing. And he came out with the fight song and he came out with the band in uniform. He was selling the experience of it. He wanted more women to go to games. Like he wanted it to be where the wife or the girlfriend wanted to go to the game too. So he was thinking, I want people butts in seats. He was an owner. Didn't mean he knew anything about the game. So there's a history of that as well. When we look at these figures, they're all flawed. They're all feet of clay. We all have these issues. So I think we're in an hour here. We can kind of shut it down here, but I don't want your responses to this. Somehow I think that there's a little bit of, it is what it is. A is A, things are what they are. The fact is, something existed enough in the atmosphere. He got pooped on to not get voted in the first try. It happened. And that's just an indication that some people felt that there was a justification in taking that route. Anyone who looks at his resume and says he's not a Hall of Famer, if you're looking at the people that have coached, and a guy wins 6 of the big one, and he's a defensive coordinator for 2 more, what we've said, and Gil, what you said, he was 9 times going there as a head coach. So I think this is a getcha or a gotcha that they did to him, justified or not, and it's over. It's done. And he's going to get into the Hall of Fame. And we're just, I don't know, are we really talking about society? Are we talking about how the Hall of Fame is run? Are we talking about pettiness in the human condition? There's a lot of things going on here. Every time something like this happens, and I know that's kind of what you've been doing, Kirk, in study is like, well, let's look at the apparatus. How did they come to this vote? But there's a part of like, what's behind it though? Like I've heard the stories about Ted Williams not winning MVPs because people in the press are like, screw that son of a bitch. We don't like him anyway. He's hitting 350 with the home runs, and they're like, well, let's get back at Ted. Somebody's give him a last place vote for MVP when he has these phenomenal seasons. That's a screw you, Ted Williams, for an MVP. He got in the Hall of Fame, but you might say from some people's standpoint it was justified because he kind of was a prick to the press a lot because he didn't like him.
Yeah.
And there's Ted back over here. So love you, Ted. I do love Ted Williams. I just think Ted Williams is awesome.
So do I. I think sometimes like when people are sort of have that voting capability, I say this to my wife all the time. Whenever I'm crossing a border going in an airport, I keep my mouth shut. I'm a very sarcastic motherfucker, but I will say nothing. I will do nothing because I do not want to piss off somebody who's got that weird power. And when I look at this other stuff with Ted Williams, Bill Belichick, all this other stuff, obviously there's so many different possibilities that could have happened here. I know I'm like sighing over and over, but this was a clear no-brainer, and a clear no-brainer to, I think, even some of the people who said no, because I think they thought that other people would sort of like say yes.
But again, let's take my guy. I just got to throw this out there. Take my guy, Joe Gibbs. He wins 3 Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks. Yeah. He's a very great man of faith. I've told you, I've talked to 2 players. One that's a brother of a friend of mine. I've had 2 guys say, one guy said, there's Joe Gibbs. I'm sorry. He goes, there's God, there's my father, there's Joe Gibbs. He said that to me, looked me in the eye, and I said, what was it like to play for Coach Joe Gibbs? He was like, there's God, there's my father, there's Joe Gibbs. And then Brian Mitchell, the returner, that also should be in the Hall of Fame. When I was talking to him at Riskin camp in Richmond, I said, you know how great a coach he was is to come back that second time after the age of 60 and win and go to 2 more playoffs. Brian Mitchell, he looked at me, he goes, Joe Gibbs is my dad. Joe Gibbs is my father. Man, that said a lot. So these guys loved him like a father. He never backstabbed his players. He didn't and he certainly didn't run around or get caught doing anything. And I think it also hurt him in notoriety a little bit because he didn't seem edgy, but he's a tough dude. Joe Gibbs is a tough man. So he goes to NASCAR. We know the story. Boom, he wins everything. So I don't think anybody voting for him in the Hall of Fame ever had a bad Joe Gibbs story. Let's give him the screws kind of thing, because he wasn't that guy. Parcells, that's another guy for me coming out of that same era. What about Parcells? How many teams did he go fix? And he kind of had a run where he kept going somewhere else and turning things around. And I don't know. I love Parcells. I think Parcells is a great coach. I think he greatly influenced Belichick. There's people that are likable or more likable or less likely or less likable that get voted in all the time. I just think this was just an opportunity for some people to do hey, how about screw you, Bill Belichick? And they did it.
Yeah.
Probably.
Gil, what's your take on the whole thing on the way out here, brother?
That's what it is. I mean, for me, if it would have been one person or 2, I can see that, because we have seen throughout history that one person that doesn't get it unanimously because of one person. We see sometimes both for MVPs. I remember when Pedro Martinez a few years ago, if he would have gotten 2 last place votes, he would have been the MVP that year. But 2 people didn't simply even vote for him to be on the MVP, even though he won 23-6, ERA 2.32, whatever the case might be. But we've seen these cases for 1 or 2, but for 10 people, 10, it's clearly planned. It's clearly saying this is the only time, Bill Belichick, that we can get back at you for either you beating us in the field of play, for you treating us, the media, the way you did, and to go about your business the way you had done the last 2 years.
Are
It's
you
all it
opening
is.
up a can of you've opened up a can of worms? I want to get Kirk's take on this too. Then, are you saying you think that it was a coordinated effort from certain guys in the group? When Kirk was saying earlier, I could see where it was just like 11 guys that randomly had
Yeah,
the same mindset.
that,
What do
that,
you think it was coordinated?
I
Not
will,
coordinated. Not
to me,
coordinated.
I mean,
Kirk, you don't think so, but Gil, do you think it was coordinated?
no, I don't think so. I know so because there's two people that told me that could
Okay.
happen.
Okay. Okay, so you're saying somebody when it's like in the Senate or the House, you got these people that run the floor to try to find out where the votes are. So there was somebody that would probably go, if I can secure 11, and it is funny that it ended up with the story is what 11, didn't vote for him.
Or
Wasn't
more.
hmm?
Or more.
Well, it could have been more. Okay. Because if it landed just over the amount to take him out, I'd even be more thinking it was orchestrated. Because if it was
But
like just enough,
it's specifically at least 10 or more. It needed to be at least
God.
10, right?
Well, the way it
11.
was reported, it was like 11 on the dot or something. That
11,
not,
but yeah, whatever. 11, 10.
no. But what I'm saying is, if it's 19 that didn't, that's like, oh boy. But if it's 11, that would imply there's one guy going around like, okay, I got to get 11 guys. I got to get them below 40. Let me run around. What are you going to do? I'll not do it. I'll not do it. Okay.
And then
I
guess what,
reached the
Jack?
number I need. I stop.
Even though there's people there, they know the truth. They're gonna look the other way. Just a simple
For
fact that
sure.
somebody will say, "I think I did. I think you thought you did."
Well,
Come on.
Kirk, what's the rule if you know? What's the rule in Hall of Fame land for football? Are they not supposed to talk to each other about this?
They're not
That's what I thought.
supposed
Okay.
to, but they are right now.
No,
Now, what
They're not
kind of
supposed
thing?
to, but they're not even supposed to sort of like acknowledge what they did.
What happens if that ever came out? Like, let's say in the next 2 years or so.
it's cool. It's going to.
Yeah, they're doing it right now. So like,
Who's doing what right now? People are admitting that there
coming
was
out and saying,
collusion.
"I did go for
No,
him.
Wow.
I did go for him. I didn't vote." Right?
well,
Nobody's saying that. They're
like,
afraid.
Sorry, go ahead, Bill.
No. I said some of these people, they are afraid to come out and say that they didn't vote for him because of the reaction. There was one person who told me, "I'm afraid that if this person's name gets out, there's going to be threat, there's going to be violence against him. That's why it's supposed to be secret because we don't want people be point out the finger and say they didn't do certain thing according to what the majority will be votes will be when it is revealed what they did, and specifically if it was an outlier, that the person that was going to be saying I did this, there was going to be so much flock and there's so much outrage by the public."
No, I totally believe that. I guess to that point, like there are so many people who have voted what they voted, but I have never, again, I said this earlier, I'm going to say it again. I've never seen so many of the actual voters say, "Oh, yes, I did. I voted for Bill." Now, again, whether they did or did not, I don't know. But again, they're not supposed to. They're not
Okay.
supposed to.
Even
say
after
what
the fact, they're not supposed to come out and say it.
Yes, they're not
Right.
supposed to.
But they're clearly not supposed to talk with each other about their plans of what they're going to do.
They're not supposed to. Again, obviously, like they probably do. I'll admit, if I was one of those, one of the voters, I probably would because I would probably want to talk to some of those people and like say, "Hey, I'm thinking this."
But if I know you, right? If I know you the way you are and the professional individual you are, right?
Yeah.
You might do that and you might stay silent. But what's happening here is there's so many people that are quick to say, "I voted for him," because they don't want to be associated with the people that say no.
I agree
That's
with
what it
that.
is.
That makes sense. That
That's
makes sense.
exactly what's happening
Oh,
right now.
I voted for him. I voted for him. I voted for him. Because
Which
you
doesn't
don't
mean
want
that they did.
But it's
what is
never
that?
divulged. The vote is never actually released.
Well,
Correct?
no, it's not actually released. But like much like the baseball hall, right? So like they're gonna say like I voted for this. Doesn't mean they did.
Right. Agreed.
Yes. I mean, if we can sit here and talk about till the cows come home, but the bottom line is we want to act like this doesn't happen. The worst people to talk to one another before
Absolutely.
that battle was started. And there you can either influence either or. It's just the way we live in society today. This was what
Yeah,
happened.
I'm just.
The two things that I'm taking away from this, and again, if you guys heard, he give you opinion on this, but my two takeaways is they wanted to make a point to him
Mm-hmm.
as far as embarrassment, one, and two, it was definitely planned.
Okay,
See,
okay.
for
Kurt,
me,
go, Kurt. What do you think?
yeah, I think some people wanted that. I don't think it was a planned cabal of, okay, we're going to screw over Bill Belichick. But I think there were some people who thought what you just said, but like a grand scheme, probably not. I think it was one of those perfect scenarios, again, with the weird math that exists, that somebody out of this five was getting screwed. Just to give a shout out to Jack Silverstein, who is a great sports historian, and he had a bunch of us do a vote. We had Belichick in
Mm-hmm.
because we thought that that's how it was going to go. But we thought he was going to be the only one because we knew that however we did this, only one person was going to get through.
Right.
So, however this goes, I'll put this right now here on your show, Jack.
Mm-hmm.
It's either going to be Roger Craig or Robert Kraft. It won't be both. It's going to be one or the other. I hope I'm wrong, by the way.
So Kraft's going in potentially this year.
Yeah, and if Kraft goes in, Craig probably won't.
Has that not been part
My
of the
opinion?
Right.
No, my opinion. This is a guess.
Has that not been part of the discussion as well? Since I've heard that, I'm probably missing the most obvious thing in the room, that there was also some tension as to whether induction day is going to be a little bit messy if both Kraft and Belichick are on the same stage, or don't let two guys in on the same deal from the same organization.
But that's what we think. Do we actually sort of like suspect that all 50 of these people who allegedly are independent, and from what I've talked to with a few of them, I think they are, have this master plan? Probably not.
Well, again, I don't think it takes a huge. It could take one person thinking it's something worth addressing. Let's try to make sure that he's not a first ballot, and then it could be as simple as, let's take us. We're 3 of the 50. Gil, what you up to, brother? Hey, Jack, what's going on? How you been doing? Yeah, just sitting there. Mowed the lawn, whatever. And then I go, hey, by the way, I know you're one of the voters too. Like, well, you think old Belichick was kind of a problem guy? Yeah, I'm never a big fan either. You think there might be a groundswell of guys that don't want to see him in? Then you might say something, and then I might say, okay, brother, so you're on board with this. Are you guys getting that same feedback I am? Okay, so maybe that's all it is one guy calling everyone he can and kind of goosing them a little bit with, hey, have you thought that old bastard? It's not like they met at the Outback Steakhouse and sat around and talked about it.
We know that happens all the time. That's exactly what happens. These people were talking. If you were big influential in the room, I think the word of you. I coached together for years. We were at one point in time rivals.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the two teams that played against one another, not necessarily a rivalry between the coaches.
No, this is how we met. That just was that was our way to meet. God put us
Correct.
in the same place.
But at the end of the day, if I'm sitting there with my ballot and you call me at that particular time and you tell me, you know what, Gil, that Kurt was a pain in the rear end. He's always nasty to me.
Yeah, I'm that guy.
He was nasty to me too. Guess what happens?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, guess what happened? I mean, it's human nature, but I mean, the rules are meant to be broken, I guess.
People
we
are voting on people, right?
Yeah, people were not supposed to do that, but they did it anyway. And now they go out of their way to tell you who they voted for, even though they're not supposed to.
Gil, tell us.
Sorry,
go ahead, Kurt. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Say, this is the first time, again, I've ever seen where the voters are openly saying, like, hey, I voted for this guy, for Bill. And I wonder if some of them they just don't want the headache from people sort of attacking them online.
He who protests too loudly, or what, it's kind of you think that them speaking, getting out in front of a microphone, or at least, leaving messages of, oh yeah, I voted for him, might be that telltale sign they don't want to get caught up Okay.
They just
Gil,
don't want to be associated with that.
tell us about your business.
14 Season Cigar Company, man, has been in my family since 1978. We have premium Dominican cigars. We have 6 different lines for all kinds of flavor. We are coming out soon with La Dama 14, which is the only brand specifically for our lady smokers. Those ladies that like to have a glass of wine and have a good cigar. It's mild. It's not going to leave you any smells. You know, we currently in Nicaragua. We currently in Mexico, Dominican Republic, and obviously in the United States.
So on his birthday a few years ago in Miami, we went into a stogie shop. That was a pretty nice place, right? So we're in South Beach, and
Yes,
we had a blast. We had a blast. Yeah, and we had a good time. And I remember we went into one place and we got a bottle of liquor, and it had a cigar in there too. And that wasn't as good as your cigars, I'm sure, but they were pretty nice. So tell all the audience, where can they find your cigars? Where can they get them to buy
Go to
them?
14 Season Cigar Company, 14seasoncigar.com. You can also reach us on Instagram. We send you a link. You can pay. You can choose. We have none of our cigars are aged less than 6 years.
Awesome.
So,
well, you know, I love you. You're my brother. So this guy and I met 2009. I think 2009. We're coaching against each other. And a little backstory on that.
Actually Jack, it's 07.
Okay. I'm coaching third base. I mean, we meet behind the cage, like taking batting practice. I'm like, "What's up, my man? How you doing?" You know, just like immediately hit it off. I'm like, "That guy's really cool. He's a nice guy." So they got a kid playing third base, picks up ground ball and throws like 106 miles an hour to first. I'm looking at the body type and I'm like, "Man, that kid's a dude." So when I'm bypassing him, I'm like, "Hey, brother, what's up with your boy there at third?" And he goes, "Dominican kid. He's living in New York, blah, blah, blah." And I said, "Well, if I can do everything to help him, let's exchange information." I make some phone calls that helps him get into another school. Gil calls me up and is like, "Dude, you're my brother. I love you." And I said, "Hey, I love you too, man. We just met, several months or a few months before." But he said something to me. He goes, "You're the only person that's promised to help a kid that actually followed through." And I was like, "Well, it's kind of what I do." I'm blowing my own horn here, but that's when we got to be close. So then in a job move, he ended up closer to me and started coaching with me. But that's the beauty of baseball and the relationships you build is you appreciate the sport and you want to help kids get better. You see a player, if you can make a help, if you can help a kid out, that's what we do. And we've been doing that together now for almost 2 decades. So that's how we got started. The cigars are wonderful. Please go online and find those cigars. Gil, I love you. You're the best. Kirk, tell everybody about your stuff.
NotHallOfFame.com. We are a site that looks at, hey, look at all these halls of fame. Who should be there? And that's what we do. And we started to create our own halls of fame, which, namely, for this purpose here, the United States Athletic Hall of Fame, because the United States of America, again, as you said, I'm not an American. Saying that, I know where the greatest athletes have ever come from. It's the USA.
Virginia.
Virginia.
Namely Virginia.
Apologies to my Canadian friends, and I'm hoping that I think Team Canada, we're going to win it all in the hockey, but we'll see.
I'm still offering up Secretariat. I'm going to die on that hill because I still think he's
we're going to talk about that.
He's the greatest athlete in American history. I'm going to make that case. And I've actually watched some stuff recently.
Yeah.
And I say this in all modesty as a Virginian that loves who he is because of where he's from. But I was watching another documentary the other day that got a little bit more into the science of his 22-pound hard or 23-pound hard in his frame. The boy was a freak. I mean, he really was exceedingly crazy and not on roids. He wasn't any of that. Anyway, I look back and
he wouldn't have known it.
Well, no, he wasn't. Okay, started getting some other commentators in trouble.
He wouldn't have known
we don't imply that. But anyway, I do think it has been argued that God just decided one day, okay, I'm going to do some magic. I'm going to show you what a racehorse can be. And he was born in, Doswell, Virginia, but he's in Caroline County, Virginia. So that's my boy. He'll always be my boy. He's the best.
We'll find this out. And for the United States Athletic Hall of Fame, www.theUSAHOF.com. It's basically where you're going to decide, hey, who is the greatest American athletes ever? We've
Yes.
had 3 classes. Gil's a voter to decide who's on the ballot. Jack, you're a voter on this also. Jack, I think this is your second year, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. By the way, you have to send your vote in.
Have you emailed it to me?
I have.
Okay, then I got to go check it because I'm not real good at following up on my email.
Oh,
anything you text me,
on that one.
Yeah, if you text me like, "Hey, go check your email," I'm on it. So I got it.
Well, I'll do that, yeah.
What's the deadline? How much time do I have?
Yeah,
the deadline?
Please tell him who's done already.
I can tell you who's done. I didn't actually see who you voted for. I send that to my friend, and he takes care of all that. He's our Ernst & Young.
Right.
For all that sort of stuff. Because at the end of the day, if it was all up to me, I would have way more hockey players than that's on the ballot. But it's not up to me. And that's sort of like why I have experts like Jack. I have experts like Gil. It looks like I've got Bonnie Blair. Bonnie Blair will be a voter in this.
Well, I've always respected the fact that if you get some real men together with sticks and the temperature drops enough to freeze the water to ice, you're going to get some hockey out of it. So there's a lot of things there. I definitely think that you got to have men, you got to have some tough guys, and you got to have sticks, and you got to have a pond that freezes over, and you're into some hockey. So I so respect it. I didn't grow up with it, but seeing it live, it's great. I mean, when I've seen live hockey, it's so different than watching TV.
I just went to the Kraken Maple Leafs game last night. I know I'm from Canada. I know I'm from the Toronto area. I would cheer for the Taliban over the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Ouch.
I will put that here on your
That's going to be on one of our little shorts. That's going to be one of those things that's on YouTube.
Fine. I hate the Maple Leafs. I hate them. I think I made
that's what's going to come up though. There's going to be your face going like, "Oh, I would root for the Taliban."
Fine. I've done that on my own platform. I'm okay with that.
No, I'm with you. I just can't wait to see that come back. The comments that'll come out of that, but hey.
I've already gotten a few death threats, but that's okay.
Wow. Over your Hall of Fame stuff? I bet you can upset. Yeah, you could. Yeah. Yeah, that's another whole story. That's another whole show. I really don't see why people.
I mean, all right, go on, beat the doughy middle-aged white guy. All right, knock yourself out.
People get so bent out of shape about so many things today, and I don't get it. But it's just I don't know. The world's changing. I don't know if it's going to ever change back. But you guys are probably old enough to. Well, I mean, you guys are younger than me, but man, we were in a sweet spot in the 80s and into the 90s. The 90s was pretty cool too, but it seemed like the music was great. Everybody was kind of chill. Things were what they were. And, it's just, I don't know. Everything seems so crazy now, but I think it's on the backside of a lot of other craziness that led to the state we're in. But when we're talking about sports figures, it can't be that serious.
You're just saying, it costs nothing to be nice.
No, that's true.
It's sort of like how I live my life. And my dad, as much as he may have said some not very tolerable things in this year, my father always said, well, he didn't always say it. However he treated people was just based on who they were. And I always stuck on that. People are good if they're good people. There you go.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, that's what I find fascinating about the world.
I'll leave you guys with this. I know that we had to cut it short. But here's what I want to get the message today to the people who's listening to us. Most people, when they treat you bad or that's who they are. They're not mad about you. They're mad about themselves. And they see you as a person that they cannot be.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that. From the third grade on. It starts in the third grade, some of that, right? All right, I love you both. You're both great guys.
Thank you, everybody. We appreciate it, man. My book is coming out soon, March 1st. The Home We Build, Leadership, Determination, and Drive. You'll see it in Amazon and Barnes & Noble starting on March 1st. The Home We Build by Gil Florentino.
Fans, here's your marching orders. Buy cigars, buy books. Kirk, what you got? Love you, Gil. What you got, Kirk?
OF.com. Look for the class of 2026 that you can all vote for. And that's a great thing with the United States Athletic Hall of Fame. Yes, I get experts like Gil and Jack to help me come up with the nominees. Doesn't mean I get to pick who's in the hall.
Right.
All of you
Right.
pick how to decide that. And every year I'm always like, really? Oh, this is good. But the whole point is having people who are qualified. And I am qualifying people and I'm so happy to have the both of you as part of this. And some of the other people who we've been talking about.
I appreciate you, brother. I'm just, and we got to keep doing this. We'll do the more to consider. We're going to do the bottom of the third. Kirk, we're going to be on your show. Yeah. And I love the fact that you guys just jumped on this, but I thought this is one of those topics that we can really discuss because it goes so far into the whole dynamic of what you study. So this is more to consider. Please please subscribe, and please leave comments that I won't read. We'll give them to Laura, my wonderful producer that we all love. And she'll see this at the end of this, and she'll know that I brought her name up as well. But yeah, please like and subscribe to the show. Watch more of this. We're going to do a lot of sports, and we just talk about life in general. God bless everyone. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like the show, subscribe and hit your notification button to get an update when we post another episode. See you soon.